CPG cars.
It's okay that you're feeling blue, 'cause I'm here to stay. I know there's a way, 'cause if I'm being true, I must say that I know what you're going through. All the funny stuff that's going through your head now.
What's up, everybody? Alright, today we're going to check the timing issue. Alright, we're going to stick a rod in the number 1 cylinder, get it to top dead center, and align the timing marks. That includes the crankshaft, and we're going to have to make sure if that round hole at the 6 o'clock mark at the crankshaft harmonic balancer is at the 6 o'clock mark. We're going to have to make sure that indentation on the back of the camshaft lines up after we put a steel bar behind it. Alright, and then we have to also make sure that our timing pointer is on the side of the crankshaft to make sure it's correct, right? If none of all those stuff is good, then we know that we have a timing issue. That's what we're going to check today. Alright? Before you begin, be sure to get jack stands to place underneath the chassis of the passenger side of the vehicle. After removing the wheel, you're going to put the jack stands underneath the chassis or the lower control arm of the vehicle. After you do this, we're going to remove the splash pan, which is underneath the engine and underneath the chassis. Remove that and get everything out of the way so you can expose the flywheel. The moment the flywheel is exposed, it'll give you easy access to all the bolts on the timing cover. You will see 8mm and 12mm bolt in that area. Later on, we're going to be removing these bolts so we can have access to the bottom part of the timing cover after we remove the top part of the timing cover. Alright, this is the crankshaft pulley. We're going to see if this is loose. And as you can see, this hole here, this needs to be in the 6 o'clock position when the piston is at top dead center, okay, and all the valves are closed. So we're going to check all that in the timing. And first thing we need to do is get this thing aligned the right way on top dead center. Now we're going to set top dead center using this stainless steel rod that I have here. Place it in the hole and you're going to feel the piston and feel to see if it's on top dead center or bottom dead center. We're going to rotate the crankshaft to get this rod up in the air, and the moment it stops at the very top part of its travel, then you know it's at top dead center. Okay, proceed by rotating the crankshaft bolt clockwise. Do it very slowly so you can see the rod come to the top part of its travel. And as soon as it comes to the top part of its travel, you should be either right on or as close as you possibly can. Now, do not put this rod in the number 2, 3, or 4 cylinder, as you're going to get a wrong reading. The purpose of this is to make sure that the reference point of the crankshaft, which is the little hole at the very bottom of the crankshaft, is at the 6 o'clock position. If you have a timing tab or that little bolt on the side of the engine in the rear of the block, it'll also line up at the 9 o'clock position while the hole is at the 6 o'clock position. This is the correct timing procedure. After we do this, we're going to get the rod at the very top of its travel, and the camshaft are going to have slots at the back of it, which are going to be in a horizontal position. You will be using a piece of metal about 3/16 inch thick to guide it into the back of the camshaft. Once they're in the slots, then you know the camshafts are timed correctly in reference to the crankshaft bolt and the crankshaft timing hole. That is a proper timing procedure for this engine. As soon as you're done with that, we're going to proceed to part 2, setting the reference point of the crankshaft the proper way. After putting the number 1 cylinder in top dead center, you're going to make sure the 9th tooth on that reluctor wheel that I just pointed at is facing the sensor. Now, this is what I found out on the top of the engine. When you look down at the rear of the camshaft, you can see that they are in the 1 o'clock position, both the exhaust side and the intake side, which is all incorrect. So this tells me that the timing chain itself either snapped or the timing slipped in the cams, not the crank, the cams. So after figuring this out, I decided that it looks like the valves had collided with the pistons and they're probably destroyed. So I'm gonna have to go to another situation and another solution to this problem. After further evaluation, I came to the conclusion that the crankshaft, or actually the piston, has hit the valve. So this engine has to come apart. So you'll need to install the timing tab in the rear of the block, as I show you here, and then turn the crankshaft clockwise so that you can hear it hit the timing tab. Then you'll know you're at top dead center mechanically, along with your rod at the very top of the engine that'll show you if it's at top dead center or not when it reaches its top limit. Okay, so after that, you need to make sure that your reluctor is on a 9th tooth on the flywheel, and check that to make sure of its status before you proceed. Now we're going to go to the top and set everything at the top before we remove the head. So as you can see, the bolt here to keep the crank at top dead center is in place. This is the one that I made myself, and we're at the 9th tooth of the reluctor. Okay, and you need to put this 10 millimeter bolt in here to keep this crank still. So what happened to this car is actually the crank didn't spin, the cam spun, because I got this thing at TDC, and the piston means it's going to be at the top dead center, which is static. So it means that, you know, that piston's always going to be the same. So in relation to this harmonic balancer, it stayed the same. And then I noticed the cams on the top moved. So what we're going to do, we're going to adjust the cams on the top. Okay, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do it. Now, some people like to take it off with wrenches, but I don't have a certain wrench on me, so I'm going to use vice grips. Make sure the jack and both the oh my god. Upper control arm or upper whatever. It's a mistake. Basically what we have to do is we have to go in here and after further diagnostics, I came to the conclusion that the crankshaft is like my head, it's bent.